Okay, today we're going to start on Mem Chesem Aleph, 48a. Right at the top, the Mishnah starts Shalosh Asher saying,
Yep.
we think we're able to learn Torah every day. And the Schus of learning, we should have the base of Mikdash immediately. Just learning for
Amen.
my father and also for Naftali ben Menucha Bela. Okay, we're coming close to our Siyam Hashas. Rabbi Eli Laufer wants to make something nice for us. So officially, we finished on Simchas Torah. Zvachim Daf Lamed. Finished, so it's about 7.5 years now. Okay, so it goes like this. Shalish Asher is saying there's three types of Asheros. Asheros are an Asher is a tree that's worshipped, right, for idolatry. Number one, Ilan Shenata Mitchil L'Shem Aved Schav Marizosur. If the tree was planted to be worshipped for the sake of it's for idolatrous purposes, so then the tree is prohibited until it becomes nullified by a non-Jew. Says that's it. I'm not worshiping you anymore. You're no good. Gida you pisle Hashem Aved Schav. This is number two. Let's say it was trimmed or it was shaped for an idol. I guess he made it grow in a certain way. V'hichlef, and then it grew. It grew new shoots, new branches. So then, then you just have to remove the new shoots. The first tree that wasn't planted for the sake of an idol, for idol worship. So that the whole tree is asur. Over here, you just have to take off the new branches. It's a little different. What happens if let's say you put under the tree an idol, and then you took it away. So the tree becomes mutter. You don't have to remove any branches. You don't have to uproot the whole tree. That's it. You put it there, you take it out, and the tree is fine. So Amri Debei Rabbi Yanai, the Gemara now introduces the discussion on this with the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai. It says, "V'hu shehivrech v'hirkev begufi shalila." This is what we said, that if Gidai, if he trimmed it or he shaped it, for the sake of an idol, which means you want the new branches to grow, to be dedicated, to be worshipped, so then you have to remove those branches. He says, but that's only if the way you did this was you grafted or you layered it. Layers when you take a branch of a vine and you put it back in the ground and you take it out again, so it grows new roots from the thing. They do ear layering. They do it in the air. They take a clod of dirt and they put it onto the tree. They wrap a diaper around it, tinfoil or whatever, plastic, and it grows roots into the dirt. And then they cut it off, and then they can create a new tree. Anyway, here we're talking about you did some sort of new tree, either by layering it or by grafting. So, and then that's why we say that the new growth is asur. The Gemara says, "Vanan gidei pisleitana." We didn't learn that. Our Mishnah said clearly that just even if you trim it. You see, what Rabbi Yana is doing is he's saying it needs to be planted initially for the sake of an idol. We're not learning that. We're learning it that's the first case if it's planted initially for the idol. The second case is where you only trimmed it, and after you trim it, it grows better. It grows thicker, right? It grows a lot of new shoots when you trim it. So, and Rabbi Yana is saying that it's only going to be asur if you made it like a brand new tree. Says, but we didn't learn that. You just have to trim it. Ella, rather, kiyatma de Rabbi Yana linin bitlitmar. The statement of Rabbi Yana was not about making the tree asur. It needs to be a brand new tree to be asur. No, the statement of Rabbi Yana is that you can even remove the asur, even if it's so prohibited that it was a brand new tree. How do you do that? Even though you layered it or you grafted onto this new tree, onto this tree, so now it's like a new tree that you're growing. But coming to tell me that in such a case, you don't need to uproot the whole tree. You just have to take away the new growths. even if there was grafting or layering. That's the chiddush. The Ma'od I could have said, I could have thought that the Kivan Shevrach Bercheb Shalil and Kilu Not Mitchila Dami. Could have thought that since we did some grafting, we did some layering here, so it's like a brand new tree. And what's the halacha with the brand new tree? You have to uproot the whole tree. Litzakula, the whole thing should be aser. Kamash Balan, say that no, just the new growths are aser, but not the whole tree. Okay, I'm not 100% clear if when it says just the new growths and not the whole tree. What does that mean? Does it mean when I put a new shoot into the ground and then I took it out? So now on this new shoot are new growths. So I have to remove the new growths from the shoot. What about the shoot that started to grow its own roots into the ground? I have to take away that whole entire shoot. I know the Gemara is telling me I don't have to take away the whole tree, but do I have to take away the whole grafting or the whole new shoot? That which grows after the worship. No, that's the next Gemara. We didn't do that Gemara. Only the new growths are prohibited. I'm just not sure what the new growths mean. C47 and Taisvis. Okay, whatever. We're holding now by Amar Shmuel. Okay. Statement from Shmuel. First generation Amira. He says like this: Ilan. Someone bows down to a tree. Obviously, it's his tree. Then Taisvasai Asura. What grows after that on the tree is going to be Asur. It's very interesting. We didn't learn that really. We learned that if you trim it, what grows now is going to be Asur. Shmuel says even if you bow down to it, it's going to be Asur. Masav Rabbi Lazar asked, Gidai upislei lavedas kichavim. Quotes our Mishnah. It says if you trim the tree or you shape it to grow for the idol, then v'hichlif, and then it grows new branches. Like the mashechlif, you have to remove the new branches. Now, what do I see from that? I see that gida yupislei in like gida yupislei lai. That it's only if you shaped it or trimmed it for the sake of the idol that it should grow new branches. That's when we say the new branches are asur. But if you didn't shape it or you didn't trim it for the idol, then you just bow down to it. We didn't say it's asur. In other words, you can deduce from the fact that it's only asur if you trimmed it, that if you didn't trim it, it shouldn't be asur. Comes along Shmuel and says it's asur even if you didn't trim it. So it looks like Shmuel is arguing with our Mishnah, not directly with the Mishnah, but what's deduced from the Mishnah.
You're explaining it because people would understand it for them. They shaped this tree for an item, and then if like something new grows, it's like a new shape. So then they just have to remove that new thing, and then it's okay. But it's like it goes back to the shape that was made for the item.
No. This tree was planted fine, right? It was planted innocently. Then you come along and say, I'd really like to worship this tree. So let's start pruning it. And this. Now the tree was all innocent until you started to prune it. And when you pruned it into a certain shape, or you made it like now. The idea here is that it's now going to start to grow new branches afterwards, and that's what those new branches were all done for diamond. Oh. So now what you have to do is you have to come along and you have to cut off all those new branches. The original tree is perfectly fine. The original tree was planted innocently. It's not an idol. Comes along Shmuel and says that if a person bows down to a tree, it was planted innocent tree, you planted a tree, right? In honor of your birthday, you planted a tree. So you don't like my jokes?
My alarm, so wake up.
Okay.
Alarm is late.
So Shmuel says that you have to remove the new branches after you bow down to it. Rabbi Lazar says the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says that you pruned it You have to, right? You trimmed it. That's when you have to, not if you bow down to it. So, in order to answer this, Amalach Shmuel, Shmuel will say to you, I want to point out over here, Naftali would appreciate this. He's not on, maybe he listens to it. That the Gemara over here says Amalach Shmuel, and Rashi says Talmuda Mahader, Hachi Matzi Shmuel Terutze. That the Talmud is responding that this is how Shmuel can answer this question. Now, the term Amalach is found in Shas, 1,000 times before Avodah Zara Daf Mem Ches. And Rashi never said that Amalach doesn't mean that the person's responding. Here Rashi says Shmuel's not saying it. It's the Gemara that's answering on behalf of Shmuel. This is how Shmuel can answer. So why did it take Rashi, 2,000 pages to give me the pshat in Amalach? That's a question in this Rashi. What's he telling me what Amalach means? That Shmuel's not saying it. It's only Shmuel could say it. He has to wait for Avodah Zara Mem Ches. Okay.
I would like.
Someone asked me this question years ago. They had an answer, but I'm learning it now. I'm trying to remember what his answer is. I think I may have an answer, but you have to wait to see the next part of the Gemara. Anyway, Amalach Shmuel, Hamani, Shmuel would respond to you that you know who our Mishnah is? Rabbanan he. Our Mishnah is the opinion of the Rabbanan. Now, if you remember, we had a machlekes between, let's go further, Shmuel Damak Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Shmuel holds like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. And the Mishnah is the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda holds Damar Yilin Shnatel B'Seif Avdu Aser. That if you have a tree that was planted innocently, but then you decided to worship it, the tree becomes Aser. So Shmuel is following that opinion. But our Mishnah is following the opinion that argues on that. And when does the tree become Aser? Only if you trimmed it, not if you just bowed down to it.
Amen.
Okay. Maskefla Ravashi. Ravashi says, Maider Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Rabbanan, but they is pleading. You, Gemara, are trying to answer for Shmuel. How do you know that that's really what the machlekes Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan is? Maybe the machlekes Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda and the Rabbanan is different. Maybe Dilma Teisefes Derekal Aser. Maybe everyone holds that the Teisefes is Aser. What grows later is Aser. In other words, if someone bows down to a tree that was planted innocently, bow down to the tree, what grows after that is all prohibited. So then that's what Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda holds. What do the Rabbanan hold? They say it's also prohibited. Then what's the machlekes? It would be Ikrei Pligi. They're arguing about what about all the base of the tree? What about all the rest of the tree, not the new growth? The new growth everyone holds as Aser. What about the base of the tree? Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Savar Ikonami Aser. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda holds that the base of the tree is also Aser because the Ksiv Ashereim Tisrafun Beish. Take a look at the word Va'ashereim, an Asherah. It's a plural. And they're Asheras. It doesn't say Asheram. It says Asherehem. Right? They're Asheras. They're plural Asheras. You have to burn the fire. Which means that there's two types of Asheras. One that was planted originally to be an Asherah, and one that was planted innocently and becomes an Asherah later when the person bowed down to it. So therefore, the Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda learns that there's two types of Asheras based on the pasuk. And so therefore, you have to cut down the whole tree, not just the new growths. But Rabbanan Sabri, the Rabbanan say, Yikri Ilan Shari, no. A person bows down to a tree. The new growths of the tree after that become Aser. However, Yikri Ilan Shari, the base of the tree is permissible. It says that they are Asheras, still plural, but ignore the plural here. But it says you should chop it down. Chop it down means that you have to cut it in a way that there's a part that was prohibited and a part that's permissible when you cut it. What type of tree is it that the trimmings are aser, but the base of it is permissible? So how do you know Well, we were trying to. How do you know that the machlekes between Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbanan is about the new growths, if they're usher, where the Rabbanan say the new growths are mutter, and that would be the opinion of our Mishnah. Maybe the Rabbanan hold the new growths are usher, and now you don't have an opinion of our Mishnah. Who is our Mishnah?
So sure, it's like something that it's like any plans, circumstance. It's like true.
Right, that's what we understood before.
It was the opposite.
You're thinking about those that's trees. There must be an Asherah. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I was surprised yesterday. That's fine.
I think the Asherah tree was just a tree that looked healthy and gave a lot of fruit. They would worship it. Like in Egypt, they worship the cow or something, an animal. This was a fat cow, like this is a, you know,
Yes. We love fruit trees that much.
Only more religious.
okay. So we have a question because the way the Gemara is trying to answer Shmuel, the Gemara says that that's not necessarily the way the machlekes really is. The way the Gemara resolved the problem between Shmuel's statement and the Mishnah was by saying it's a machlekes Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbanan. If what continues to grow is prohibited, the Rabbanan say it's not. Comes along the Gemara, or comes along Rabbi Lazar, and says, not Rabbi Lazar, comes along Rav Ashi, and says, how do you know that's the pshat in the machlekes? Maybe the pshat in the machlekes is different. Maybe the pshat in the machlekes is that everything is us. Everyone holds that what grows is us. The shaila is if the base is us. Well, maybe we can answer. If you look back, when we had Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda before, when we first quoted him, we had some difficulties with which pasuk was he using. We said that Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda was going to use the pasuk to teach me that a tree that's worshipped becomes aser. He says, "Ma'asherayim tigadeyon." He learns it from the tree. You have to chop it down. Which means that the way we were viewing it now, that pasuk teaches me that only the new growths are aser, but the base of the tree is permissible. If you want to find that, that was on Daf Mem Hey Yomid Beis. That's the way we were learning it. The Rabbanan learn Asherayim Tisrifum Be'esh, that you have to burn the tree in fire, right? You have to destroy the tree. That's talking about because it was planted originally for that. What does Rabbi Yossi, how does he know that a tree that was worshipped later on becomes aser? Because it says you should chop it down. Comes along our Gemara over here and says, no, Asherayim Tisrifun is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda telling me that there's two types of trees. One that was originally there, and one that was worshipped later, and you have to destroy the whole tree for both of them. So the Gemara is now asking, you didn't do that with the psukim before. You used Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda's pasuk to explain the Rabbanan, and you explained the Rabbanan's pasuk to explain Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Now you're switching it. So the Gemara said, but that's not what the Gemara said before. The Gemara says Eipach, so we can switch it around. What we said before is not necessarily so. Do Rabbanan, the Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbanan. We'll use the psukim differently. Okay, and now we have a new pshat in what they each hold. It says Im Kain, if that's the case, Gidai upislai man katanila. If you say that everyone holds that the new growth is aser, so then our Mishnah doesn't fit with anyone. Our Mishnah says that only if you trim it, the new growths become aser. Which opinion is that? Le Rabbanan, le Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. It's not the rabbi's opinion. It's not Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbanan. If you want to say that it's the opinion of the rabbis, Even if you don't trim it, just by bowing down to it, it would be asa. That's what you're telling me now. So the Mishnah doesn't fit with the rabbis, with the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. And if you want to say it's Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Yekir Nami asa. The Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda holds not just the Teisefes, not just Neitel Mashe Hechlif, like the Mishnah says. You would have to destroy the whole tree, according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, Iba Yisim Rabbanan, Iba Yisim Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. I could answer this in two ways. I could say that the Mishnah is the Rabbanan. I could say that it's Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Now, Ramesha, take a look at this. It gave me two options. Iba Yisim Rabbanan, Iba Yisim Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Now, instead of going back to the first one, it starts with the second one. Iba Yisem Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. If you want to say, I can say Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. How are you going to do that? He come Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. When did Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda say that the entire tree is aser? B'loi gida yupisloi ikari lanasser. If you didn't trim it, then we would say the entire tree is aser. Bistama. Aval gida yupisloi. But if you do trim it, gali adaita the b'tisefes nichalei. Why did you trim it? Because the base of the tree, you didn't want it to be an idol. You trimmed it because you want new growths to be an idol. You're like very strict about this. So the trimming actually makes it worse. Not worse, actually. The trimming makes it better. That instead of the entire tree being usher, if you would have just bowed down to it, the whole tree would be usher. Now that you trimmed it, you're showing that you only want the new growths to be usher, not the... Now you want it to be us. You want to worship the new growths, but not the base.
Doesn't that like the tree like grow more?
Exactly. That's why the new growth are going to be usher. All the new fresh growth is usher because he trimmed it. Now it grows because of that. Right? The trees grow from the bottom. I don't think so. Yeah, but you don't see a fat trunk coming out of the branches.
So it's always on top.
Yeah. Remind me, this guy said, where do people grow? Do they grow from the heads or from the feet? So he brought a proof that everyone, they grow from the heads, not from the feet. Because he one time saw the Russian army. All the feet were the same and all the heads were different. Obviously, they grow from the head. Okay. So...
I have a question bothering me. If they shape the tree in an idol and then it grows and then you trim it back, it goes back to the idol.
Yeah. I think the translation that we have to do here is paslai or pislai. I think we have to translate it as that they pruned it in a way that it has a certain, that it should grow in a certain way. Not that it now looks like an idol, but that they wanted it to grow, like, let's say towards this direction. They wanted to go to that direction, and they wanted it to grow more round or something.
Like a bonsai or something.
When it grows, yeah, they're making it grow in a certain way. And that's what I think. Okay. That was one answer. Now we do the second answer, which was really the first answer. Iba Yisei Rabbanan. Fine, you can say that our Mishnah is really the opinion of the Rabbanan. And Gidei Episli Etzrichalei. You had to tell me that you trimmed it, and that's why it's aser. Because even though if you bow down to it, it's aser anyway. Because it could have been to your mind to say Kivan da avadle Maisa Begufa. Ikari Lanami Litzer. It could have thought the Rabbanan hold that it's aser if you trim it. And the Rabbanan hold that it's aser. The Rabbanan hold that the new growths are aser even if you bow down to it. So why do you tell me that it's aser when you trim it? Tell me the bigger chiddush. Don't tell me the lesser chiddush. Tell me the bigger chiddush. That even if you just bow down to it, it's aser. No, it wanted to tell me that what do you do when it becomes aser? You cut off the new growths. By the way, the Mishnah is telling me that you can resolve that problem by the tree becoming aser by cutting off the new growths, even if you trimmed it. You don't say the whole tree is asr, but the solution would even work for when it was trimmed. That's why it's important to say this, even according to the Rabbanan, right? That's what the Gemara has been doing a lot of the time. It's saying, it's asking a question: if it's asr in a more lenient type of way, if it's asr when you did less, so why did you tell me it's asr when you did more? You could have told me the bigger chiddush it's even asr for less. The Gemara is resolving it by saying no. The way you resolve it is the same even if you did more. Right? Okay. You have a new Mishnah. Ezu Asherah. What is an Asherah tree? So we just said there's 3 types of Asherah tree. Wait for the Gemara. It's going to ask, like, 1 second. You just told me. Well, it says, Kol sheyesh tachtei avedas kichavim. The Rabbanan say, an Asherah tree is that where there's an idol underneath it. On my block, there's there's one non-Jewish house on one side of the tree, one side of the street. That non-Jewish house has idols all around the angels with wings and all types of stuff in the yard. There's one tree that has like these angels underneath it. It's the egg fruit. What's it called?
Eggplant?
No, you know what the egg fruit is? Canistel. You know what canistel is? This yellow fruit. You open it up, it looks like the inside of an egg.
Egg or
A hard-boiled egg. It looks like the hard-boiled. I think it's called canistel.
from Ohio.
It's not from Ohio. It's from Homestead.
Not from
Anyway,
Ohio.
this tree on my block has these idols under it. I see the fruits falling, but I would never ask them for the Asherah.
Oh,
It's an idol under it.
On the trunk, they had a face.
Oh, it could be. It could be. Anyway, so that's this opinion. If you have an idol under it, this is the opinion of the Rabbana of the Tanakama. If you have an idol under the tree, it's an Asher tree. Reb Shimon says no. Reb Shimon is always Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He says, Kol sha'ayv d'maisa. No, they have to worship the tree. Not if they're putting an idol under it, the whole tree becomes an Asherah. They're not worshiping the tree. This is just, they put an idol under the tree. Maaseh b'Tzidan, there was a story actually in this place called Tzidan. Be'ilan she'ayv d'maisa. They're worshiping a tree. And under the tree, you saw there's a mound under the tree. Reb Shimon says, let's search this mound. Let's see. Let's examine what's going on. They searched it. They found a little idol in the mound. So he tells them, they weren't worshiping the tree. They were worshiping the idol that was underneath the tree. The tree's fine. The tree's kosher. That's Reb Shimon's opinion. Now the Gemara says, Ezu Asherah. You're asking me what an Asherah is? You have to read this like in a surprise. Ezu Asherah? You want to know what an Asherah is? You already told me the Mishnah before that there's 3 types of Asherahs. The Gemara's Hachi Kamer, no. There's 3 types of Asherahs. 2 of them, this base here. 2 of them, everyone agrees. And 1 of them is a machlekes between Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan. Now the Gemara says, Ezu Asher shnechleka Reb Shimon v'chachamim. And what is the Asherah that the Chachamim and Reb Shimon are arguing about? So that's the 3rd one, which is if there's an idol underneath it. Kol sheish tachtav yitzcham Reb Shimon kol sheiv d'maisa. Shimon says no, they have to actually worship it. Okay. Similar to that, yeah. So you mean if there's just an idol in the bath, it doesn't mean the bathhouse is us, right? Okay, now Gemara says, "Izu asher stam." If you're walking around and you see trees, you want to know: is this an asher tree? Is this not an asher tree? Oh yeah, I didn't notice.
Sorry, don't look at your picture, Asher. We're learning the Gemara, so
I can't. I can. Show me the.
We're not looking at our phone, sir. We're looking at the Gemara.
Oh, I see the money. Huh.
It's a lot of truth.
The interesting.
Grow any of those?
I want one of those babies. Good about moringa. I want that.
You can't eat this.
The word Ashera. Now, it sounds like a positive word. It's like Ashrei. Like happy is the one, lucky is the one. Ashrei is the opposite of Eicha.
Oh.
Like happy. Eicha means like woe to alas, something like that. Anyway, but I guess maybe that's why they called it that, because it was like this plentiful tree. Yeah. So how do you know if it's an asher tree? I'm a Rav. So Rav says, "Kol shekaimrim yeshim tachteh." If you see priests sitting under it, that's an asher tree. Vein kaimim Peir said that's only not if they're sitting under it. That's only if they're sitting under it, but they won't eat the fruits. They consider the fruits sacred. Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says, "Afilo amri hani tamri lebei nitzrafi aser." Even if you hear them saying that these fruits are for these dates are for bei nitzrafi, which was a type of an idol. I wonder what he says. Bei nitzrafi is. It's aser derami bei shichra v'shasi lebi yamidim, because it's aser because they're going to use this for beer and they're going to drink it on their holiday. They drink beer on their holiday.
Let's do Labor Day.
Oh yeah.
They know how they do business.
Labor Day in Crown Heights. Okay. You ever see that? The Labor Day parade? Oh, it's wild. Yeah, you got it. It's sort of like the Jewish community in Crown Heights goes underground in the Labor Day parade. So what draft are we on? We're on 48 day, right? The background to this is various commentaries have offered suggestions for the etymology and meaning of this name. Possibly it comes from the Parthian word for Nazarene and refers to a place of Christian worship. Oh, I knew he was going to tell me something interesting. Yeah. Nitzrafi is supposed to be a modified Nazarene. Okay. Now, Amar Amemar says, Amali Sabi de Pumpadisa. The elders of Pumpadisa, remember who they were? They were the sons of Rachva, I think. They were the Sabi de Pumpadisa. They were, look in Sanhedrin again. Sanhedrin Yud Zion.
Yud Zion. How do you remember two times?
Zion is good. Yud Zion is good. So Sabi de Pumpadisa is Rabba. The only girl is Karna. The end is Rabbi Ami, Rabasi. The end of the Pumpadisa, Rapapa Bar Shmuel. The end of the is Ravada Bar Sabi de Sirs of Hun. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbeina. So Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbeina are the Sabi de Pumpadisa. The Harifi de Pumpadisa are the sons of Rachba. Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the and Rabbi Yehuda and Ravena, which Rabbi Yehuda is more famous than Ravena, but he's one of the Sabi de Pumpadisa, and he says that the halacha is like Shmuel, and the halacha like Shmuel would be that even if they say that these fruits are for beinatzrafi or beinatzrafi, so then the tree is considered an Asherah tree. Yeah. Lo Yesha B'tzila. Start the new Mishnah. We're on 48b. You don't start with 48, right? The guy who won the lottery. And they said, how did you know the picked the right name? It says, well, I said I picked the number 48. And so why did you pick 48? He says because it's a mixture of seichel and mazel. He says, okay, what's the seichel? He says, well, the best Jewish number is 7. So 7 times 7, I picked 48. So he said 7 times 7 is 49. He said that's where the mazel comes in. Okay. So anyway, don't sit in the shade of the Asherah tree. Now, don't sit in the shade. Now, it's going to become very clear as we read the Mishnah that we're not talking about sitting under the canopy. We're talking about the shade, as you know, the shade of this pencil. You know, as it gets longer, you're not sitting under the canopy itself. You're sitting on the side, but the shade, because the sun is over here, so it's shade. But if you do sit in the shade, then it's tar. You shouldn't pass under it. But if you do pass under it, tummy. You see, you can't be talking about the canopy because we just said a minute ago that you're tar if you're in the shade. Now it says if you're under it, then you're tummy. So that shade couldn't have been the. This is an expression that means it's hanging over the public property. Gezelos means it's stealing, but it means that it's reaching into the public property. So and you pass under it in the street. So then tar, you're tar. It's going over the sidewalk. I had a teacher in Muncie that he was brought to court because he didn't trim his tree. The guy, that the inspector was a known anti-Semite in Muncie. Anyone that does anything is, of course, an anti-Semite, you know. So when he gets to the court, the guy says, "You didn't trim your tree." He says, "Well, what's it supposed to be?" So he says, "It's supposed to be 6 feet from the ground to the branches." So he said, "Did you measure it?" This is like this teacher that's like learns Gemara. He's arguing with the inspector. He said, "Did you measure it?" He said, "No, but I can tell what 6 feet is." He said, "How tall am I?" He said like something like, I don't know, 5'8". He says, "No, I'm 5'10". Or something. See? He tells the judge. They let him go.
Very smart.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway.
He's lucky, Lemko. He said you were.
by the way, the judicial system in Muncie is full of very interesting.
Okay. It says you shouldn't sit in the shade. The Gemara says, Pshita, of course you shouldn't sit in the shade. You're having benefit from Avodah Zara. We're not talking about the shade. We're talking about the shade of the shade. I always like this expression because there's no such thing as shade from shade. What it means is that, right, shade can't give more shade. But what it means is that if the size of the tree is this big, right? This is the size of the tree. So the shade of the tree should be till here. But let's say, because the sun is over here, so then the shade is much further. It could be double the size of the tree, right? So tzila is not the original shade, the size of the, turning it downward, horizontal, but it's the extended part. So that's the tzila. Even that part you can't be in.
What about such that there's double shade? You can have double shadows. There's
Too light.
So would both shade?
No, each one is one. There's a shade from each one. It's not a shade of a shade.
These shade them always causing such trouble for Jews.
Okay, so now, what we're understanding from this is that the extended shade, if you're not supposed to walk under that shade, so you're not supposed to sit in that extended shade. But if you do, you're tar. So this michlal, this implies the betzel kaimasa, that if you're in the original shade, the shade of its own height, then im yashav tameh, then you're probably tameh. When are you tar? If you're in the Tzel Tzila, in the extended shade. But in the you probably tell me. The Gemara says like, no. Even if you're in the original shade, you're also tar. But Kamash Blanet, so what's the chiddush of this? That even in the extended shade you shouldn't sit. In other words, our problem is that you're only tummy if you walk under it, not if you're in the shade of its height. Some learned this Gemara on the second part of the Mishnah. It says in Yashav Tar, it's in clause 2. If you sit in the shade, you're tar. The Gemara says Prita. Of course, you're tar. You're not under the tree. The chiddush here is that even though you're in the original shade of the tree, in the original height, you're still tar. Michlal, but that would imply that would imply that if in the extended part of the shade, there's no problem with sitting there. The Gemara says, no, that's not what it's saying. The chiddush is only that you're not tamei if you're sitting in the shade of the type. That's it.
Is kavana necessary here? Like, do you know that it's cherry tree or it's like one?
It seems like it's all, of course, a rabbinic tumah, but it seems like if someone would tell you later, it seems like you would be tamei.
Even if you didn't know.
Yeah, but we learned that if it's hanging over the Rosh Rabbim, then it's not a problem. I went with Rabbi Marlowe's in-laws to Wales, with the Jaffes to Wales. They have a house in this place called Llandudno. It's a city in Wales. And over there, they have the center of the town has a shul and a church right next door to each other. It's like an old-fashioned town with the center. You know, this like town, right? So there was a kohen that was with us when we were there. He said, "Don't walk under this tree that's hanging over the church property because church properties in Europe were also burial grounds. It's machlokes if a kohen becomes if machlokes if a non-Jew gives off tumah ba'oil, you can't touch him. That agrees. Machlokes if it's ba'oil as well, if it's a canopy. So that he had to like climb over the fence and go, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, next part of the Mishnah. You're not supposed to pass under the tree, and if you do, a person becomes tummy. My time. What's the reason why he becomes tummy? The answer is there's obviously some sort of offerings that are also under the tree, and when you walked under the tree on this side, the canopy was covering you and the offering, and we know that the offering gives off tumah. Mani, who holds that this opinion that the offering gives off a tumah? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir. It's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir. The Tanya, son of the Brayso, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir. Aimer, Yehuda ben Beseir says, "Minayin latakruvas avitzcham shemitam ba'ayal." How do you know that offerings to an idol give off impurity under a tent, under a canopy? They attached themselves to Baal Pa'ar, and they ate from the sacrifices of the dead. It's calling the offerings to Baal Pa'ar, it's calling sacrifice of the dead. Why is using that comparison? It's going to tell me it's similar to the dead, just like a corpse gives off impurity in the tent. After also, offerings to an idol give off impurity in the tent. Therefore, you walk under it. There's probably offerings there on the other side, and you're under the same canopy. Let's say it's stealing from the public property because it's hanging over the sidewalk. There's just it's tar. You walk by, it's tar. Ibaylu. The yeshiva has a question. Avar or oiver? That means it sounds like matzah or maitzah. Remember that Gemara about the wife? There it says, "Are you b'diavad? It's tahar, or lechatchila? You're allowed to walk under the tree if it's in Rosh Hashanah, right? Is it if you did, you're tahar, but you shouldn't do it, or does it mean no lechatchila? You're allowed to walk? They don't give the Avodah Zara rights over the sidewalk. Yeah, they can't take the sidewalk. Well, that's a question over here. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishmi de Chizki Amar. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar, in the name of Chizki, who's the son of Reb Chia, he says, Oiver, lechatchila. Rabbi Yechanan Amar, im avar, if you did, b'diavad. B'diavad means if it happened already.
So the first opinion is similar to Pater Avodah.
The first opinion is saying, no, lechatchila, go ahead and do it, mutter. Second opinion says Pater Avodah. Like, it's if you did it, you're pure. The Gemara says actually there's no machlekes here. Depends. Do you have another way to walk or not? No other way to walk. If there's no other way to walk, then you're allowed to go with the chatchila. And if not, then if there is other ways, then you're supposed to go the other ways. Amle Rav Sheshes l'shamei. Rav Sheshes tells his assistant, "Kimatas lahasam." When you get to that place, arihitni. Let's go very quick. He says, "Hey chidami." What does he mean? Go quick. If there's no other way, so then why do you have to run? What does running help? 22nd rule. Mishra Shari, you're allowed to go. If there is another way, you say to rush, that's allowed. You do it quickly. Really, there is no other way. However, Adam Chashav Shiny, an important person, should not hang out under there, and you should go quickly. Yeah, even though it's permissible, because there's no other way. Still, that's what you should do. Okay, let's leave the Gemara here. Should we learn tonight?
I think we have to catch it.
Okay, let's learn tonight. Try to finish the parak. Those that can't make it, Bez Hashem, tomorrow we'll start Rabbi Shmuel Eimer, hopefully, if we can get through it.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Hatzlacha.
Thank you.
Rabba. Kol Tov.